Доброго дня, шановні колеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Let's start our summary briefing press conference. I invite the participants to take their places. So, I would like to thank everyone for coming to our event where we summarize the year's result. Ukraine has great potential. It has not been implemented in full, but we have made steps forward. And our topic today is what prevails, wins or failures in renewable energy in 2016. We would like to talk today about positive things more. That is why we invited the key persons. I would like to introduce the speakers. They are Oleksandr Dombrovskyi, MP, First Deputy Chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Fuel and Energy Complex, Sergiy Savchuk, Head of the State Energy Agency, Georgiy Geletukha, Head of the Bioenergy Association of Ukraine, Tetyana Boyko, Coordinator for Housing, Communal Services and Energy Programs in Civil Network OPORA. We will give the floor to our speakers now, and then we will have the round of questions and answers. I'm giving the floor to Mr. Oleksandr Dombrovskyi, MP. Could you tell us, please, about legislative initiatives and the work of the Parliamentary Committee on Fuel and Energy Complex in full? I would like to thank, and I would like to mention that the time for our summary press conference is chosen correctly. This is the first press briefing when we can make some summaries. I would like to greet everyone and to address energy industry workers and to greet all consumers of Ukraine, because all of us are consumers of renewable and conventional energy sources, and I hope people will feel comfortable in our country as consumers of energy. The work of our committee was rather busy. We made very many projects. If we would like to talk about renewable energy today, we should understand that the renewable energy could be addressed only in the context of energy security of Ukraine. 2016 was the year when we adopted and the president signed the law on energy regulator. This is a key law for modernization of energy sector of Ukraine. In 2015, the law on natural gas market was adopted. It started working this year. We created conditions for this market to operate, despite the problems which we have in this natural gas market. We have 12 importers of gas and more than 100 traders working on the market of natural gas. This year, the law on national regulator in energy sector was adopted, and within 6 months we should launch, and out of 7 members of national regulator we should select and approve nominees as members of National Commission on Energy and Utility Services Commission, and I've already told that the electricity market law was adopted in the first reading, and now we have the discussion ongoing on many issues, including on renewable energy. In this context, I think that as concerns renewable energy, we have green tariffs for wind, solar, biogas, and other sources of energy. The green tariffs are adequate and they allow to operate sustainably and to attract investment in this industry. We should understand that renewable energy development and energy efficiency, they are the most important trends in the global scale in the world, and if Ukraine follows these global trends, the third trend is that the renewable energy price per kilowatt is competitive for conventional energy sources. I think that the rules have been formulated, and at the beginning of 2017 we should start working to compile the whole legislation on green energy. We have the draft law 4334 on heat supply. We have problems with connecting of generation facilities. We have the problem with land plots for construction of alternative energy projects. All these draft laws have passed by our committee, and the work group is now working on the draft laws, and I think they will be voted at the start of 2017. A very important package of draft laws concerns energy efficiency. In the first reading, the draft law on commercial metering was passed. We had discussions on energy efficiency of buildings, and we have reached consensus, and I think it will be voted very fast at the beginning of 2017 in the first and second reading. And I think that energy efficiency technologies will be very fast launched, and the next package of laws which we will be working in 2017 concerns alternative energy. The draft law on electricity market, I proposed a supplement so that green tariffs is provided for some other sources of solid waste. So if you have any questions, you are welcome during the round of questions and answers. And now I'm giving the floor to Mr. Sergiy Savchuk. Could you tell us about your communication with foreign investors? Do they experience legislative barriers in Ukrainian context, and how to overcome them? Thank you for your question, and thank you for this event on the eve of the new 2017 year, talking about our joint work with Verkhovna Rada, with producers, with NGOs in development of renewable energy sources. This is already a victory, because several years ago we even couldn't imagine about any press conference where all stakeholders in the industry will be gathered and that mass media sources will be interested in the renewable energy sector. As soon as idea is not disseminated on the grassroots level, it can't be launched. As concerns foreign investors, this concerns the idea which they also should be communicated for foreign investors. They are interested in payback of their investments, whether they can earn much from such productions, whether it would be more compared to just depositing money into a bank. So the market of renewable energy in Ukraine is 16 billion euros. So we are not talking about competition between monopolies. This is the area where we feel interest of our foreign institutional partners, which are willing to construct bioethanol plants to produce energy from cellulose or other raw materials, biogas, biomass, heat pumps. We feel this, the interest of the foundations which representatives visit us, and we feel financial stabilization in the country. Besides, they want to have adequate regulatory environment. I would like to demonstrate you several slides about regulatory policy. First, what we have mastered to do. We reduced gas consumption by more than 7 billion cubic meters, 1.5 billions dollars have not been paid to Russian Gazprom, and 452 megawatts of boilers were provided by foreign investors. This provided the opportunity for condominiums to apply heat insulation in the buildings. The boilers are now operating on pellets, and this money, they work here in Ukraine because we saved them, and they feel national budget of Ukraine and help us to attract investment. What we should do? Mr. Dombrovskyi is one of the authors of this draft law. We should protect investors. Resolution 453 is not followed by the national regulator. That is why today investors tell us today, give us legislative tariffs like green tariffs in the electricity market. The law has been adopted in the first reading. 242 MPs voted for it. So this is the guarantee which will give us the opportunity to calculate profitability level, profitability rate, and to attract investment from national banks, domestic banks, and also foreign investors. during several years in the heat supply industry, we will be able to replace 3 billion cubic meters of natural gas with renewable energy sources. When the law was discussed in the parliament, the deputies said that we will have no forests because of fire in wood. We have what to fire, for example, waste, wood waste, and replacement potential makes up 1.7 cubic meters of natural gas. Moreover, the forests, we could grow them. We need 3 billion cubic meters of gas to be replaced according to the law. The potential is far higher. We have waste of corn, we have waste of rape, and waste of grain crops. We export raw materials. The Europeans ask us, you don't want to buy natural gas for dollars from Russia or other countries. Just don't export pellets, don't export raw materials. If we create the market, then we will have these raw materials staying in our country. Here we show this structured resources, 3.8 thousand hectares. We have marginal lands where crops would not be grown, but some projects demonstrate that energy crops could be grown there, such as energy willow in Volyn, Lviv, Kiev region. Ivan can tell us more about this. He has been already growing energy crops in Kiev region. We can also talk about the energy crops that they can replace about 21 billion cubic meters of gas. We just should create a heat supply market. What are the obstacles? If an investor enters the market, not every telecommunenergo can heat supplies company allows Dutch foreign investor to operate. The Baltic countries, they provided conditions for heat suppliers. They created conditions for competition. We tried to do this along with the committee and the national regulator, and we will soon present the new draft laws. Expected results of the launch of competitive conditions in the heat supply industry. This would give us lower tariffs. In any market where monopoly is present, the tariffs are growing. Where there is no monopoly, where we have competition, an investor will not steal from himself. I would like to remind that the National Action Plan, Renewable Energy Action Plan, has been adopted till 2020, and we hope to have 10,900 megawatts of electricity by 2020. In heat supply, we are going to have 5,850 TOE. talking about development of renewable energy sources, we can prove that we are going the right way. We are working on the draft laws which have been adopted and would be adopted. They help us to attract investment in Ukraine. One of the laws which was adopted last year helped us to eliminate destructive tariffs for solar energy. We decreased corruption component, we increased tariffs for biogas, biomass, and provided 10% more to domestic producers, and the wind plant from Kramatorsk already received such 10% higher tariff. The interest is demonstrated. I will show it in dynamics. From 2013 to 2016 on installation of capacities, this slide demonstrates we are moving, and when we have enough investors our movement will be faster. How the law 414 already demonstrated effect on solar panels. In the mid of 2015, we passed solar tariffs, and the effect was quarterly measured. You can see it on the slide. We have 6 million households where solar panels could be installed on the roofs. So if we invest into the plant, into the factory producing solar panels for installing on the roofs, then the solar panels costs will drop. As concerns the draft laws, we passed alternative energy sources draft law, which refers heat pumps to the equipment which use renewable energy. Also, the law of Ukraine on alternative fuels simplifies the procedures, administrative procedures for those producers of ethanol, and draft law on electricity industry promoting installation of solar and wind power plants in private households. The effective norm is to install 30 kilowatts, but it can't be realized in full so far. I hope that this draft law will be soon registered and voted later. We have developed the draft law amending legislative acts of Ukraine to develop the production of bioliquids. We depend on oil and we import them. Only one refinery operates in Ukraine, so we should mix gasoline with bioliquids, and now we have developed the draft law which would promote bioliquids production domestically in Ukraine. The next slide, the draft law on cogeneration. What is it about? Europe stops producing electricity and heat separately. If we are talking about capacities over 20 megawatts, then we should consider cogeneration facilities, which will help us to produce at the same time 3 megawatts of heat. The draft law has been developed and we will soon submit it. So, how can we summarize these facts? We see that private households and the fuel market, renewable energy appears in the other sectors which are not conventional for Ukraine but conventional for the whole Western world. For example, trucks company from Great Britain installed 600 megawatt power plant which will now run on pellets exported from Latvia and other countries, and the European Commission supported this. We should follow this trend. As concerns connection, we have problems with connection to networks. Investors, some of them has projects with technical requirements, technical specifications, and other investors they do not have technical specifications, but they have money. So Latvia restricts issuing of technical specifications. If technical specifications have been issued, their effective period should be limited to 2 years in Ukraine. This way, those investors having technical specifications, they will be forced to build their projects faster, and other investors they simply will be able to operate without speculations with the help of such technical specifications, which are now not restricted by time limits. So we will seek support to this draft law. As concerns investors, the International Renewable Energy Agency is one of the global agencies. IRENA provides very cheap loans. Ukraine tried to become member of an arena for 6 years, but this year, thanks to the initiatives of SAEE and the president of Ukraine directly, who issued the decree to for membership in IRENA. So the draft law on implementation of our membership in IRENA has been drafted, and it would be submitted to the parliament soon. At the beginning of the next year, the delegation to IRENA will go to Abu Dhabi conference. Mr. Oleksandr Dombrovskyi will head the delegation and I will be the member, and we will defend there the interests of Ukraine. Thank you very much, Mr. Savchuk. We are limited in time. Just the last slide today to provide information to investors so that they are able to invest in Ukraine. We created interactive investment map. Any investor in Ukraine or in London or in Tokyo can use this map to see the existing projects, their payback periods, profitability, and they will have the opportunity to communicate to these developers and to discuss the investments. This is an update. This map is updated daily. Do you have the increment in capacities, generation capacities in Ukraine?
Good afternoon. Show the slide. It gives the answer to this question. This week, energy balance of Ukraine was published on 2015, and we analyzed the data that we have for 2015, and also we had some information from previous analysis. And as you see, there are two indicators. One is production of biofuel and waste, and second is overall supply of primary energy from biofuel and wastes. So the production increases 38% per year, and in 2015 biofuel replaced 2.4 billion of gas, and the lower curve is called the overall supply of energy, and here the rate is 26% a year, and in 2015 we reached 2.6. So the difference between this is export. So this equivalent is exported in the form of pellets, wood chips, and wood that could be here, but maybe there was proposal from abroad that represented higher price. That's why it is done so. And the higher curve are the goals for bioenergy. So we are lagging behind, and the trend is good. The sectors that grow with a rate of 38% a year rare in Ukraine, but we aspire for more, and according to the plan 2020 we should have much more, and we believe that it is possible if there are changes introduced. The changes we discussed today. The most pressing issue is draft law 4334 to establish proper pricing of bioenergy and other types of fuel. And the Soviet principle is now in the sphere, and according to this principle, those who invest in boiler, they know that they will have 6% of profitability, so they will have the choice whether to go to the bank, for example, and get their 15%. So in this case, investor in the system, they won't invest in biomass or in boiler. They wouldn't invest in biofuels. In order to change the situation, we should connect it with the tariff of gas, and this draft law provides opportunity to the renewable energy that there should be 90% rate, and in this case the investor will have a profitability of about 20%, and this is enough, but without too much stimulation. So this is not 100% that some people say that in 1 year they will reach the level, but we will have about 4 or 5 years of projects, and this profitability is enough in order to attract investment. This draft law was adopted in first reading, and we ask the Committee of the Supreme Council to speed up the process and to introduce it to the second reading. And additionally to this draft law, after adoption of the law on regulator on in the sphere, there is some situation that the tariffs that were established for alternative energy by regulator, according to the new law, this function is provided to the local government, but the methods how these tariffs are calculated, it is non-existent. And this draft law regulates this area, it gives methodology how they will establish such tariff. Because additional argument is how to pass this draft law quickly. And competitive market, why we are speaking about it, and we work together with the committee and energy efficiency. If this investor is provided with a tariff according to this draft law, they will have problems with connection to the network. Imagine this energy heat supply network in Kiev or any other city. For example, an investor comes to them and say that I will build here, and I will supply the energy through your system. What will be the reaction of the monopolists that now control 100% of the market? They will say, I don't need this heat, because when you connect, I would stop my boiler and I would lose part of the market. That's why there is natural conflict of interest with such independent producers. In order to resolve this problem, we should protect this independent investor. We should create conditions when the operator of this network he won't mind to transport. It would not matter for him whether this is heat generated by his company or some other company. So the tariff should cover all real expenses. In such a case, there will be a real cooperation in concerning connection. And also, there should be transparent rules of connection, because there are many legislative opportunities for Teplo Communenergo not to connect such independent producers. And in Lithuania, they have a document that envisages the rights of the parties and what to do in case of dispute, that provide new functions to regulator about prejudicial resolution of disputes. So this should be clearly envisaged in the law, how to help this independent producer. So when we do this, we will see the auctions. There will be monthly auctions, and among all the participants, they will choose the best, and the result of this will be continuous competition and pressure of those who are more efficient on those who are less efficient, and the decrease of the tariff for consumers. So these are our priorities, and I hope that at the end, renewable energy will enforce the competition on the market and lower the tariffs. In case of heat, we do not need this higher green tariff. We are ready to compete in existing, and we are ready to win in this competition. We just need clear rules of game, and to change this from monopoly to competitive system. And I also give the floor to our next expert. Could you please tell us about this project on renewable energy? Thank you for this invitation. First, I would like to thank the team for their work, because in 2 years we saw that a lot has been done. It is even more that was done during 25 years of independence of Ukraine in this area of replacement of the natural gas. And we saw that gas previously was cheap, and no one said about replacement of gas, and in 6 years we created vertically integrated groups of companies. We grow energy crops, and we also produce equipment for boilers that we export in European countries and Scotland. We have several permanent networks, and also we started to export to Belarus and to Russian market in Moldova, so our neighboring countries, and also we signed a contract with Karas, well-known company assembly here in Ukraine, because the cost is lower in Ukraine, and we created these boilers here and supplied it to the network. And also we have the biggest network of boilers that work on a solid fuel, and we burn more than 3,000 tons of wood. If we consider it in we use pellets, wood chips and wood, and we heat about 1.5 million meters. And also 2 years ago our company, we have about 100 companies like ours in Ukraine, and the members also of the association are also many. And for investor, the most important is the signal from the state that the state needs this activity. The state needs to reduce the consumption of energy resources, including natural gas. And also this year we entered the project of green energy. We got the licenses on green tariffs, and also we plan to build bioethanol plant together with European and American partners. We now develop feasibility study to create a facility for bioethanol. We also plan to create a powerful vertical and horizontal integrated company in bioenergy with equity of $50 million. And we believe that our example can be an example for our European partners, because we do not have many investors from Europe now, because there is lack of stability. But the examples of our company and other companies, they give opportunity to attract more investment, because without money we won't be able to build anything. If we are speaking about obstacles and tariffs, maybe in allocation of land plots, on the eve of the new year, I would like to speak about achievements. Of course, we have many problems. Also, there is a position of monopolists, because they do not want to lose their markets. And the system of today's communal enterprises, the motivation, they want to lose because they can increase tariffs in this case, and they take more money from the consumers. This is a Soviet-style system that is not changed, and it is difficult to compete. But there is green tariff. That is one of the best laws in Europe, and it gives opportunity to powerfully enter this market. Thank you. Tetyana, you are given the floor. Could you please tell us about OPORA experience in this? So what are your results about it? Good afternoon, dear colleagues. In order to develop green energy, we need two things. First, the change in the minds of people. Oleksandr Grigorievich said, renewable energy, green energy, clean energy, and energy efficiency. These are the main trends, and this trend will continue for a long time, both in Europe and in the world. And second, we need clear rules of game. If we have two of these aspects, we will move really fast. The example how it worked in a good way, we can look at private households and the setting of solar electric stations. So once they created favorable regulation in this area, people started to get involved, and 128 solar power plants were established in a year. And we have some success stories. One condominium established a solar collector, and for example, in the village, all administrative buildings are working on renewable energy. And also there is a village near Kiev. There are 48 different alternative sources of power are involved. So they want to see what will work better, and we should spread this success to other people, to show them that it really works and it can yield results. So Ukrainians, if they see that their neighbor does something better than them, so they start to change things for themselves. About regulations, two important strategic documents that were not mentioned today. These are, last year Ukraine ratified the Paris Climatic Agreement, and for the implementation of this agreement, the government is now develops a strategy on low carbon development. So also OPORA civil network also administer this project in the framework of USAID project on municipal reform and for consumers and for investors. It is important what place will be taken by renewable energy, and also energy strategy till 2013, the project of which was made public recently on the site of Ministry of Energy. And for us it is also important that for a long time they would have good place for this clean sources of energy there. So also there are many reforms in adjacent sectors. Also we should complete the reform of communal area. Also modernization of the system of energy supply, because under the conditions that now exist, heat supply companies, they are not interested and they are not competitive. And a third important block is transfer to monetarized subsidies, because we have a lot of those people who get subsidies. And if clearing system remain that exist now, this won't motivate those who are now in the market or new investors to come and invest. If they cannot get compensation from the state, in the best case scenario, they will have clearance. That's why we should transfer to monetization, and the idea of the government to go in 2 stages. First, cancel clearance, and to provide money to providers, and then that these subsidies will go to the banking cards of consumers, and then they by themselves will pay for communal services, because otherwise consumers are not interested in energy efficiency. And the conclusion is we have stories of success. They are not many, but we should spread good experience, we should highlight good experience, and we should show, second, that there are investors, they wait, but for this we need clear rules of the game, and we should have a lot of them, both at a strategic level and at the level of regulation of different areas. Thank you.
Питання.
Dear colleagues, please ask your questions now. Introduce yourself. Institute of Renewable Energy, Yuri Favorsky. I have a question to Mr. Dombrovskyi. You told us very nice about the year, about parliamentary achievements, and as concerns the electricity energy sector, you didn't tell about yesterday's voting for draft law 5129. The title is of today's briefing is wins or failures, and what is about yesterday's voting. Is this a victory or a failure? I heard yesterday 3 billion hryvnias could be received by the national budget. Is it compatible with the amounts of claims? Because companies will go to courts due to the restriction of the green tariff. This issue of restricting green tariffs for solar power plants which were built before 2015 and for under 10 million megawatts. We are talking about solar power plants built by 2013 by company Active Solar, for which the legislation and administrative procedures created unique preferences which were at the brink of corruption. Nobody in the country had the possibility to build, to connect, to get such preferences in tariffs. That is why in the mid of 2016 we are the country in war and we experience problems at the electricity market. We have debts in electricity market for about 30 billion hryvnias. So the political decision was adopted for 10 power plants and not for other legal companies to reduce the high tariffs which were provided by using corruption, reducing these tariffs to adequate levels. 1 year and a half ago we had 2 alternative draft laws decreasing these tariffs. Then the discussions took place whether it is right or wrong, whether we can change the law post factum with retrospective applications. So the tariff was so the law on reducing tariffs for these 10 solar power plants, it was adopted. What happened yesterday? Yesterday this norm was continued. We didn't change anything yesterday. We just prolonged it by till the deadline for all green tariffs. We had several minutes with ambassadors and owners of these Chinese power plants. It was bilateral agreement between Chinese state company and Ukrainian private company. It was not state investment. It was not covered by any governmental guarantees, and there are many questions to the components of this agreement. What price was per kilowatt? What customs clearance were applied, what loans were received in Ukrexim Bank and the Shad Bank, and these loans remained and they are the debt to Ukraine. That is why community passed such a decision. Whether it is good or bad decision, talking in ideal terms, it is their own decision. Really, we post factum changed the rules of the game for one company, but considering that Ukraine is the country in war and the annexation of Crimea happened, and we have political and economic risks accumulated, so it is fair towards other investors. I think this is a correct decision. Chinese investors who bought these projects, I can demonstrate you the figures in the national regulators' calculations. Chinese investors will be receiving annually about 3 billion hryvnias of cash flow, net cash flow. So the cost of these power plants were about $170 billion. So looking to payback period, and I think this is one of most profitable deals for foreign investors. So such combined decision, it could be rather controversial, but it looks correct one. Yesterday in Verkhovna Rada, I told that we are interested in Chinese investors to enter the market and the other countries' investors, but we should have rules of the game which are applicable to everyone, but not preferential rules for one investor. Dear colleagues, unfortunately our time is over. The briefing is over. Thank you to everyone for taking part in this summary event. And